Today I'm going to be reviewing a movie called The Lodge. The Lodge is a psychological thriller with a simple premise, but it starts off with a bang. This doesn't count as spoilers because it happens immediately. So the mother of a separated family isn't handling the divorce very well and kills herself. The two kids are devastated, but the ex-husband continues to move on with his life as he had been before the tragedy even happened, which is understandable, but also leaves everything in a bit of an awkward position. As is the timeless tale, the kids don't like the father's new girlfriend. And when he leaves them alone with her to bond at their lodge, the kids do their best to make her feel very, very unwelcome. And of course, in an environment like that, things start to go terribly wrong. The Lodge is an interesting movie. Its cinematography really lends to the narrative. As we watch the new girlfriend, Grace, start to question what's happening around her, the camera trails very close to her face and focuses on her in a claustrophobic sort of way. It was a fun movie and I really enjoyed it, but I definitely got hung up on one thing that other fans didn't. If it sounds like The Lodge is up your alley, this is the end of the non-spoilers. Definitely go check it out if you're in the mood for a moderately good horror movie. As always, I usually kind of start with praise before I go into criticism, and I was pleasantly surprised by how engaging the story was, despite its simple and overdone tropes. Although it's obvious the kids are fucking with Grace, and you never question that aspect of the story, it holds your intrigue because you don't know how she'll respond. Also, let me just say, this is why kids are the worst. Why can't you just accept her as a nice new adult in your life? Why you gotta hate on her just because she's dating your dad and making your dad happy? Sure, your mother killed herself because the idea of their relationship made her so insecure that she committed suicide, but that's not Grace's fault. Kids are just not mature enough. Now, if it wasn't for the way that the ending was handled, I would have found Grace's spiral into insanity a bit problematic. They introduce her as a wild card because she had a traumatic past in a cult and very obviously has some mental issues because of that. And that isn't a problem because they show her as a rational, kind person up until she is broken down by the children's harassment. When her pills go missing, Grace takes a responsible stance. Knowing how much she needs them and how uneasy she already feels, her immediate response is to go find help. Her plan doesn't work out because she's already so unhinged and vulnerable, but I'm glad that the movie acknowledged that people with emotional trauma aren't just a flip switch for violence waiting to happen. There was a definite, reasonable build-up that happened, and it all lined up. If they had have just treated Grace as something that was bound to go off no matter what, then that would have been problematic. But the way that it was actually handled, I really enjoyed. I felt like it was sort of comeuppance. Not even comeuppance. You could probably call it like a karma. It was karma. I also really liked the ending because it was satisfying as hell seeing two complete asshole children get their just desserts. They kind of just sit there and accept their fate too, which is kind of funny and moving. Normally you'd try to run away from a gun even though you know it's a gun, but they've internalized the idea of penance that they'd been haunting Grace with. They deserved what they got because of what they did to her. Repent! I thought all of the acting was great. The kids really shined in the moments where they tried to take back what they'd done to Grace. You could really see the guilt in them, and you could understand like how these sorts of situations get wildly out of control. The Lodge did a lot of things really well for such a simple story, except for one. Although the movie is shot as a third-person perspective, a lot of the scenes narrow in on Grace's perspective so we can feel the anxiety that she is having. We're almost attached to her as we continue to get snippets of the children who are characterized as smart and highly manipulative if they want to be. They know how to hack into their father's computer to get dirt on Grace's past. They take advantage of creating conflict with her over literally everything they can get away with as the bereaved children of the woman she's replacing, but never got so far as to be scolded for something unreasonable. The little girl fucking with Grace by talking on her phone while Grace thinks that they're all out of service and they're stranded, just to make Grace look like an idiot when she comes bursting into the room demanding to use it, is a great example of a malicious kid prank. Even letting the dog out of the lodge counts, although they should be old enough and smart enough to know that it would freeze to death. Stealing her meds counts because they know that they're important, but not how much Grace really needs them. All believable, acceptable forms of harassment modern children could totally pursue. However, the Lodge goes a little too far in that. While Grace is presumably asleep, we're supposed to believe that the kids set up speakers all over the house to say shit like, repent, to trigger her PTSD. And when Grace is in the worst state that they could wring from her, where she's questioning her insanity because half of it is them fucking with her and half of it is in her head, the boy fucking hangs himself. Grace thinks it's real and loses her mind, and them telling her afterwards it wasn't real, it was just a prank, fell entirely on deaf ears. If you watch a lot of horror movies or otherwise, you've probably looked into some of the stunts and how they are pulled on film, out of curiosity, of course. A lot of the current population and horror fans know that there are devices that you can literally buy online and use for a self-hanging stunt. Maybe I'll link one in the... No, that's a bad idea. I don't want... No. So anyway, in case you don't know how that sort of contraption works, it's about having a secondary area to take the weight off of your body so it's not actually pulling on your neck. For example, it would look like there's one rope and it would be around your neck, but it would extend farther down, probably down your back, and hold on to your waist. So it's actually holding you up by your waist, and then it just looks like it's on your neck. There you go. That's how they pretend to hang people in movies. But the movie, out of all of the things that they do explain, all of the kids' pranks, all of the setup and the speakers, the movie doesn't explain that one. Until it's revealed that the blackout and the voices and things being inexplicably stressful for Grace were caused by the kids, we, the audience, have been kind of taking this trip with Grace. Until we're told it's a prank, aside from like little snippets of speakers in the corner, we are not genuinely hinted at that this is not happening in her head. Until we're told it's a prank, and unless you've got keen ass eyes that saw the speakers and the shots ahead of time, we're on the edge of our seat believing that it's all Grace's hallucination. Or, most of it. They're fucking with her, but how much? And out of all of that, we didn't get the hanging man set up. The casual, it's a prank, we did it, doesn't suffice to explain how. How did the kids get all the equipment there unnoticed, really? How were they evil and smart enough to plan all of this out and enact it, never considering the consequences? How are audience members that don't know how hanging stunts work supposed to accept that they were just able to do that it was just a prank? There's just that little bit of extra explanation for how everything went down that as a reveal, and then a continuation of the real horror was the fact that they did this to her, not just how. It would have been helpful to solidify everything in reality, so we could very thoroughly take apart which parts were manipulation and which parts were trauma. The explanation of the behind-the-scenes plot relies heavily on the movie watchers being an audience with pre-existing knowledge, and I don't think that does the movie any favors. That it can't hold its own merit as a thriller if an older or uninformed viewer watches it. Aside from that one extreme nitpick that I feel like this is a movie that I couldn't have enjoyed as much if I didn't have as much knowledge in the genre that I currently do. The Lodge was good because it was a malicious kid versus a mental stepmother. Very well done, which is timeless. But it also put a timestamp on itself because it had to be watched by someone like me, or likewise. Overall, The Lodge was super fun, tense, the cinematography was great, the acting was great, I really, really enjoyed it. And I'll probably watch it again. So with that said, I'm going to be giving it a 4 out of 5 stars.